Women, what are some questions you've always wanted to ask men, but were too embarrassed? Sometimes my wife asks me about something I'm really interested in or passionate about late at night, and I have to point out that she is knocking on the door of a 2-hour PowerPoint presentation and she's got work in the morning. I listen to space podcasts to go to sleep. It works because I already know everything they are talking about, but if I find one with a new topic I haven't heard of, then I can't sleep. Dr. Becky on YouTube has a segment where she discusses new papers almost every week, and it's great. I hope you realize that's a compliment. So many women can't shut their minds off at night. All the things we need to do and are worried about just run rampant the second we try to settle down. Your wife feels safe and soothed by your voice. And by asking you to talk about something intellectual like that, you are helping her to focus on something besides her many to-do lists, so her brain can relax and drift off knowing you are there. I definitely do. When I was facing anxiety and panic attacks at night, she would comb her hand through my hair and sing to me. If anything, I can do this because of her love. I don't know if I would be as blessed and loving as I am without her. She truly is the essence of my universe. I feel awful for my man because when he goes on and on about something I don't have much interest, it can put me to sleep too. At least it can be useful, right? I love that man to death though, and his talks are the best. He's so cute when he's excited about things. I don't even need to talk. Apparently I just have an aura of quietness or something that makes her fall asleep anywhere, anytime. 10 years on and I still don't know how to feel about it. Many would see that as a slight, sleeping despite one pouring their mind and heart out over a topic, yet it is that very thing that gives them such peace that they can rest without any effort. That is a very special thing. I love when my wife falls all asleep in my arms while we watch a movie and I rant quietly about random shit pertaining or not pertaining to the film. When she really wants to know, she asks me when she's not tired. When she just wants to hear my voice to relax so she can fall asleep, she asks me at midnight. It's just a thing she does. I know she's not completely interested in the minutiae of diesel swapping a Datsun 720, she just likes hearing my voice. My first long-term relationship started that way in college. We had hung out and flirted a bunch, culminating in us watching a movie at her apt and her shoving me against a wall when I was about to leave afterward. It was a shock, it was a surprise, and I'll never forget that night so long as I live. Girl nearly half my size just took her shot. I actually did have this fear with my last girlfriend. She was a bigger girl and I wasn't really concerned about what they thought, but just didn't want anyone being judgmental toward her. It's hard to explain. I wasn't ashamed of her or anything, just hate the thought of people judging her by her appearance. 100% this. I never was concerned about how she came off to friends. But her insecurities about her looks made me insecure for her, even if they were unwarranted. I always wanted to protect her feelings, and if she was worried, I was worried. Frankly, and ultimately my friends didn't care, never would have worried about it if she hadn't ever mentioned it. As a tall guy, a woman taller than me would be weird at first but not an issue. Honestly, I think there is no difference between men and women when it comes to their partner's weight. Some people don't care at all, but most people probably have a point where they don't find it particularly appealing. And the hair thing really doesn't matter. I prefer less, but again, it's not an issue. As a tall woman, taller than average man, I found nearly all dudes were intimidated/weirded out by my height, and tall dudes would see how big my shoes were and realize they were the same size, and it became super awkward. Lots of men like the idea of dating a tall woman, in a fetish sort of way, but it took a long time to find a partner who it didn't matter to. I always wondered if it was just the luck of the draw for me or if there was a tendency for tall guys to compare themselves to a tall woman. Thanks for sharing your perspective. This is so silly, but as a tall man it actually has always been a bit of a fantasy of mine to have a girlfriend taller than me. It's just always seemed really nice to me to be the little spoon for once. Unfortunately, this probably will never happen because, well, for one, there are almost no women taller than me, but more importantly, on the very rare occasion where I did meet one, I was indeed too intimidated to even try and make a move. I've been jetpacked plenty. But it's not the same. Frown. My last girlfriend was 5 feet 9 inches, and when I was spooning her it must have looked like the Blob, but the other way around it doesn't seem to quite work. They're always less broad in the shoulders, so they have to kind of reach over me and can't do the proper enveloping you want to see in a big spoon. Honestly, I'm 6, maybe even 6 feet 1 inch, and have never had an issue with height. Granted, I've never tried to date a particularly short dude, say under 5 feet 10 inches. But I've definitely dated guys shorter than me, definitely dated guys who weigh less than me, and I'm thin, but I've dated dudes who are also thin plus 2 inches shorter, definitely dated guys with smaller feet than me, and it's never been a big deal. I always get the impression that if we both could wave a magic wand and make him taller or me shorter we would, but it's not like a thing or a deal breaker. I think since I'm used to being tall it's always more of an adjustment for the dude, as they aren't used to women being taller than them. And they've always just been like, yeah it's different but it's not a big deal. I've definitely never felt fetishized for my height, and while dudes might be a bit intimidated / weirded out at first, it has literally never once felt like it was a big deal to them. Honestly though, a lot of that may be that I've never tried to date someone significantly shorter, more than 2 to 3 shorter. There was a time I had a FWB who was pretty short, and he was definitely always looking up at me with an aspiring mist in his eye. Might have been a bit of a fetish. But in my experience, as long as you're within a few inches and not trying to wear 4 inches heels every night, the vast majority of guys will adjust quickly. Ergonomically speaking, it is ideal to date in the ballpark of your own height. I am about 195 centimeters tall, and I remember dancing with a woman who was probably 150 centimeters, and it was humorous to say the least. I just can't get that low, I don't care what Lil Jon says. Either way though, love conquers. Look at Shaq and his wife. Just make sure you stock up on those icy hot back patches. I'm 5 feet 0 inches and I dated a guy once who was 5 feet 3 inches. Even though I was shorter than him, he never shut up about how terribly short he was. He was super insecure about it. I kinda understood at first, but eventually, it just became a huge turnoff. How many times are you gonna ignore me telling you that I love your height and don't like when guys are too much taller than me? We broke up for different reasons. He was a complete asshole in other ways too. 6 years ago, a female coworker, she's a lesbian, so I'm fairly sure she wasn't hitting on me, said your arms are looking great today. It's something I've always been self-conscious about and have been working really hard on. It made my entire month. That's probably the most recent genuine compliment I've gotten. Edit, I'm getting some kind of secondary mood boost reading about all you guys' compliments. This whole post is full of some wholesome shit. When I was in middle school, it happened frequently in one class and I thought it was fine since I was sitting down at my desk. You know, who's gonna notice? I found out one day it wasn't fine when the girl sitting next to me's friend came in the class for some reason, looked at me, and said, "Oh my god, are you the one whose dick goes up and down?" And the girl next to me looked like she wanted to die as much as I did. I remember my buddies were discussing this in grade 7 or 8 and we all agreed that it was best to tuck it behind our waistbands. My one friend was quiet for a moment before asking, "Yours reaches your waistband?" There were looks all around and I quickly changed the subject. Poor guy that day, but he grew up to be handsome motherfucker. I knew a guy that went into the military. Well, apparently in boot camp you don't typically sleep in something that can hide morning wood, so everybody noticed when he woke up and his little soldier was also at attention. The way he describes it, the drill sergeant gets up in his face asking if he'd been dreaming about his girl back home. His reply was something about being so damn excited to serve his country that he couldn't help himself. Sergeant accepts that answer and moved on with the day. I don't think it's true, but it's pretty damn funny to think about. You've got to recommit every day as well. Reaffirm your thoughts. My wife is my best friend, and she was before we got married. We joke and laugh and cry at a lot of the same stuff. I knew I wanted to marry her when I met her, but she didn't remember who I was tongue. It took time for her to come around, and that was fine because I'd rather get to know her better over time, and marriage isn't important, it's the time you spend with them that matters. Plus other stuff. Her boobies look nice. I haven't seen any other responses that mention this, so I'll throw it out there. I've had more than one attractive friend bemoan her lack of male attention when she goes out, but she also keeps herself surrounded by a pack of 5 or 6 friends at all times. Sometimes it's less about your beauty being intimidating and more about, do I have to walk up to this whole group and have 8 people judge me instead of just one? Another factor, though for me I think it is still lack of self-confidence / fear of rejection in a prettier bow tie, is for me, if she's super attractive, chances are she's sick of being approached by random men / sexualized and just wants to live and not be hit on or bothered by men. I don't want to contribute to an assumed long list of men making them feel uncomfortable, singled out, self-conscious, unsafe. My first long-term relationship started that way in college. We had hung out and flirted a bunch, culminating in us watching a movie at her apt and her shoving me against a wall when I was about to leave afterward. It was a shock, it was a surprise, and I'll never forget that night so long as I live. Girl nearly half my size just took her shot. I actually did have this fear with my last girlfriend. She was a bigger girl and I wasn't really concerned about what they thought, but just didn't want anyone being judgmental toward her. It's hard to explain. I wasn't ashamed of her or anything, just hate the thought of people judging her by her appearance. 100% this. I never was concerned about how she came off to friends. but her insecurities about her looks made me insecure for her, even if they were unwarranted. I always wanted to protect her feelings, and if she was worried, I was worried. Frankly, and ultimately my friends didn't care, never would have worried about it if she hadn't ever mentioned it.